All right. Let's dive into some chassis scales. That's right. We're talking precision weight measurement for those racers out there. If you want the lowdown on the Longacre DX2 chassis scale set, we've got all the info, product descriptions, specs, user guides, the whole 9 yards. We're going deep.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're trying to shave off those tenths of a second on the track, tweaking your suspension. But something just feels off. That's where something like this DX2 comes in. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I got to ask, can you really figure out what's holding your car back with just weight measurements?
Oh, you'd be surprised. Even tiny little weight imbalances, they can really mess with your car's handling, especially when you're pushing it to the limit. It all comes down to how much weight's on each tire and how it's balanced, front to rear, side to side, the whole deal.
So too much weight on the front tires and you end up understeering.
Exactly. And the opposite is true too. Too much weight on the rear and you're risking oversteer, which is, it's way more unpredictable.
So it's not just about straight line speed. It's about optimizing for those corners, right?
Yeah.
That's where the races are won and lost.
Exactly. And that's where a tool like the Longacre DX2 really shines. It gives you that data you need to really dial in your car's setup, improve tire wear, and ultimately get those lap times down.
Okay, so weight distribution is key. But what makes the DX2 so special? What even comes in the box? I'm looking at the product description here. We've got 4 aluminum pads. Each one is 15 inches by 15 inches. They're pretty thick, 2.5 inches. And they come with handles and recessed connectors. Already sounds pretty high-end. But here's where it gets interesting. There's a 7-inch Android tablet included, high-resolution color screen, and it comes with this Computer Scales XLI app pre-installed. Plus, you get a case for the tablet and a storage box for the pads. Now, I'm not exactly a tech guru, but I can see this tablet integration is a big deal.
Yeah, you're right to be excited about that. This is where the DX2 really sets itself apart from those old-school chassis scales. It's not just about getting a weight reading. It's about collecting, analyzing, and visualizing that data so you can make smart decisions about your car's setup.
Okay, that's pretty slick. But wait, how does this whole wired AND wireless thing work? We're talking about scales here, not a smartphone.
It's actually simpler than you might think. Each pad has its own little brain, so to speak. It's a circuit board that powers the load cells, which actually measure the weight. And the tablet, that's your control center. You can mount it right to the pad board for a wired connection, or detach it and walk around your car taking measurements wirelessly.
So I can be like a conductor, leading the orchestra of weight distribution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can even tuck the tablet case under the car, which is great for anyone who's ever tripped over cords in the garage.
Okay, you've got my attention.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the app, this Computer Scales XLI app. I've looked at the features, and I'll be honest, it's a little overwhelming. Where do we even begin with all this data?
Don't worry about that. It's actually pretty user-friendly, even for someone like me who's, more comfortable with a wrench than a touchscreen. Let's focus on what matters here. How this app actually helps you get the most out of your car.
Okay, I like the sound of that. So it's more than just numbers on a screen, right?
Exactly. For example, it shows you all the partial weights and percentages. So you see not only how much weight is on each wheel, but also how that weight contributes to the overall balance of the car.
So I'm getting a complete picture of my car's balance. What else can I learn from this app?
Well, one of the coolest things is that it shows you both current and stored weights. So let's say you're fighting some understeer, and you make a change to your front spring rates. You tweak those, take new measurements with the DX2, and the app lets you compare that new weight distribution to your old setup. You can see right there how that change affected your balance.
That's awesome. No more guessing if those adjustments actually did anything.
Exactly. And to make it even easier, there are 10 memory slots. So you can store different setups, track conditions, all kinds of things. Think of it like a digital notebook just for your car's weight distribution.
10 slots. That's serious data logging. And I see there's a rotatable car icon on the display. So I can look at the car from any angle. And the display matches my perspective.
It's a small detail, but it makes a big difference. No more mental gymnastics trying to figure out those numbers.
That's what I call user-friendly. I also see something about customization.
Oh yeah, the app is totally customizable. You can see just the data you need and arrange it how you like it. If you're really focused on front to rear balance, you can have those numbers front and center.
Like a personal dashboard for my car's weight distribution.
You got it. There's even a note-taking feature for each memory slot. Jot down your setup specs, tire pressures, anything you want. You can even name each memory slot, so it's not just a bunch of numbers.
Way I can name them, so like rainy day setup or pre-race tune.
That's it. All about organization and making that data work for you. And the best part, you can save and share those files. So if you're working with a team or want to analyze the data later, easy peasy.
This is way more than just a set of scales. It's like a whole data center for my car.
Yeah.
All this tech sounds amazing, but
Yeah.
does it make things more complicated? I mean,
Yeah.
some of us are better with wrenches than tablets.
I hear you, but Longacre really tried to make this thing user-friendly. The tablet comes with the app already installed, no complicated setup, and the app itself is pretty intuitive.
So I won't need to learn how to code to turn it on.
Not at all. And if you are comfortable with tech, there are even more ways to customize things. Really fine-tune it to what you need.
Okay, so it's easy to learn, but also has a lot of depth. Easy to learn, hard to master, as they say.
Exactly. You can jump right in and get started, but there's always more to explore if you want to dig deeper. Speaking of digging deeper, I noticed the app has different car icons. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, that's a nice little touch.
Yeah.
It shows how much they thought about the design. You've got stock cars, modifieds, open-wheel racers, even karts.
It's more than just aesthetics, though. It actually helps you visualize the weight distribution for your specific type of car.
Right, of course. A stock car is going to have different weight distribution than a Formula One car, so it's helpful to see that visually.
Exactly. And on top of that, the app can do metric conversions, too. So no matter where you are in the world, you're covered.
That's a relief. No on-the-fly conversions at the track. So we've covered a lot here. The DX2 is definitely in a class of its own when it comes to chassis scales.
It's more than just scales. It's a whole system for measuring, analyzing, and optimizing your car's performance.
But let's bring it back to the listener. If you're thinking about getting this system, what are the key takeaways? So we know the DX2 is not your average set of scales. It's a serious tool for anyone looking to, step up their game. But for someone who's still on the fence, what's the real benefit? What can they actually expect to get out of it?
Well, it comes down to better performance, doesn't it? Imagine you're trying to get that extra tenth of a second. You're making adjustments, but nothing seems to work.
Yeah, I've been there. It's frustrating.
Right. You start second-guessing everything. But with the DX2, you take out the guesswork. You see exactly where those weight imbalances are, you make those targeted adjustments, and suddenly those tenths of a second start showing up.
Okay, I'm seeing it now. I'm consistently understeering in a corner. I get the DX2, take some measurements, and boom, too much weight on the front tires. I adjust my suspension a bit, maybe tweak the spring rates or sway bars, and the car handles perfectly. No more understeer.
Exactly. You're not just guessing anymore. You're making data-driven decisions. That's the power of the DX2.
So it's not just numbers on a screen. It's about real improvements on the track.
Absolutely. And it's not just about fixing problems. The DX2 can help you take your car even further. Even if you think it's handling well already, it's about finding those tiny improvements, those tenths or even hundredths of a second that can win you a race.
Like having a coach for your car. But instead of yelling at you, it gives you data points so you can make smart choices.
Huh. I like that. And remember, the app's always getting better. Longacre can add new features, new ways to look at the data.
So it's not just a one-time purchase. It's an investment in something that's constantly improving.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Looking at all this, I realize there's so much I don't know about car setup. It's like a whole new world.
That's what's great about it. The DX2 isn't just a tool. It helps you understand how your car really works. It makes you ask questions, try new things. And with the app, you can store all your data. Take notes, track your changes. You're building a knowledge base for your own car.
So it's not just about quick results. It's about learning and getting better over time.
I like that.
Okay.
You sold me. The DX2 is going on my wish list. But before we wrap up, anything else about the DX2 that stands out?
What's interesting is we've been talking about racing, but the DX2 can be used for so much more.
Oh, like what?
Think about anything where weight distribution matters. Off-roading, towing, even trucking. Imagine fine-tuning the weight balance of a trailer so it's more stable and you get better fuel economy, or using it to load a delivery truck perfectly.
Wow, you're right. I hadn't even thought of that. It opens up a lot of possibilities. This has been a really interesting deep dive. We've gone from the basics of chassis scales to all the features of the DX2, and even some uses outside of motorsports. I'm feeling inspired to get out there and start tinkering.
And for everyone listening, we've just scratched the surface. With all this data the DX2 gives you, the question is, what will you do with it? Whether it's on the track or just learning about how your vehicle works, it's a tool that lets you experiment, learn, and improve.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into chassis scales. Until next time, happy tuning.